In Disney Lorcana, there are 6 different ink types, each representing a unique playstyle. In this video, I'll tell you all about the magical inks of Lorcana, in terms of their gameplay but also the visual theory behind them, and how both of those things come together in the design of each card. Join me as I explain to you the different Disney Lorcana ink types. In the universe of Disney Lorcana, ink is a magical power source that Illumineers use to summon glimmers in the game. There are 6 different ink types: Umber, Amethyst, Emerald, Ruby, Sapphire, and Steel. These ink types or colors are one of the most important aspects of deck building, as each ink color has different strengths and weaknesses and represents the qualities you can expect when summoning glimmers. So let's take a deep dive into what each ink color does, and also look at the visual theory behind them as shared by a Ravensburger team at this year's D23 Expo. The best way to describe Umber is with the word purposeful. From Disney Lorcana's website, glimmers in Umber are described as purposeful, patient, and dedicated, where by supporting each other, the whole is greater than the individual. When it comes to gameplay, Umber specializes in supporting your characters through healing effects, as well as bodyguarding them from damage. This color relies on playing many characters and getting the upper hand out of quantity, putting some pressure to the opponent. Generally speaking, Umber characters have less strength, but as such, they can also often provide abilities to reduce the strength of opponents in the process. Umber is less focused on controlling your opponents and more about helping you close the game. Until now, Umber is also the only ink type that has characters with the singer keyword, providing some very powerful singers able to sing songs sooner than you would normally be able to. Other common keywords are bodyguard and support. As presented by Ravensburger, Umber's core shape is the shield, representing their purposeful and protective nature. Visually on Umber cards, you'll see lots of interconnected weaving ribbons, interlocking and woven together. An Umber card that greatly represents the visual theory is Rapunzel gifted with healing, where this language is shown through her hair, which is woven around here, but also the shapes in the background of the scene too. With Amethyst, the best way to describe it is with the word magical. According to Ravensburger, Amethyst glimmers are wondrous, sorcerous, sages, and animated objects, with otherworldly powers and arcane abilities. If your concern is with card draw, Amethyst excels at this. One of the best ways to get an advantage in Disney Lorcana is having lots of cards in your hand to give you more options when you play. Some other unique interactions relies on force exerting characters, moving damage from one character to another, or finding what you need with options to scry for other cards, by looking at the top cards of your deck and reorganizing it in any order. Amethyst also has access to some control elements to rush and bounce characters, like Madame Mim Fox. Other common keywords are challenger and evasive. Until now, Amethyst is also the ink type with the most cards that outright gives lore to players, such as the action Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom. Amethyst's core shape is the crescent moon. The majority of Amethyst cards' design are represented by random patterns, scalloped with circles and curves, while avoiding straight lines. An Amethyst card that greatly represents this visual theory is Maleficent Formidable Queen. You can see the arcane magic swirling around her in random curves, and this also follows through to her robe and briars too. Even her pose and the framing of the card are curved. The best way to describe Emerald is with the word flexible. Emerald is known for producing characters that are never caught off guard and are able to expertly adapt with ease. Being a flexible ink color, Emerald combines characters with high questing potential, along with effects to punish and slow your opponent down, while not giving them much space to not have to face these new situations face to face. Things such as preventing your opponent from questing, returning their characters to their hand, and even forcing them to discard cards are all part of Emerald's strategy. Even though Emerald does not have any keyword exclusively to this ink type, a lot of its cards will have ward and evasive, making challenging even harder. Unbanish effects in this card are other abilities very present in a lot of Emerald cards. Finally, Emerald also offers a lot of equalizer type of effects that can give you a benefit if your opponent is in a better position than you during the game. When it comes to Emerald's visual theory, its core shape is the S-curve. You'll see this represented across many card designs with rolling curves, twisting and adapting, as well as calmness and more methodical shapes. Emerald is always evolving. An Emerald card that greatly represents this visual theory is Anna Diplomatic Queen. While Anna herself has a calm and methodical pose, we see the S-curve heavily featured here too, in her dress, but also the pattern of the drapes behind her, all the way through to the leaves of the plants. Let's take a look up close to Ruby. The best word to describe Ruby is daring. Ruby is known for characters that are warriors, explorers, and daredevils, that are risk-takers, brave, and agile. Ruby is largely centered on controlling your opponent's board through focus removal. This is achieved by including characters who might not quest for much, or even at all, but who more than make up for its strength or simply with cards that outright banish opposing characters without having to challenge. It is common to find cards with the evasive and rush keywords, or that can buff its character's strength. Ruby also have some incredibly powerful songs to further control your opponent. A classic example is Be Prepared. Until now, even though Reckless can be applied to a character through different cards from other ink types, Ruby is the only ink type that has characters that are reckless on its base form. This ink is also unique in that it offers some effects that can self-inflict damage on its own characters in exchange for other benefits. A Ruby deck is great for players that want to keep the pressure on opponents with a very aggressive playstyle. Ruby's core shape is the lightning bolt. You see this in the visuals of the cards, which make use of erratic, sharp points, and disorganized shapes. A Ruby card that greatly represents this visual theory is Robin Hood's Sharpshooter. The sharpness of his pose and perspective of the illustration almost create a sense of a lightning bolt shape. Compare this to the streamers and ribbons in the background, as well as the jaunty angles of the tents, all of which add a sense of disorganization. With Sapphire, the best word to describe it is intellectual. According to Ravensburger, Sapphire glimmers are intellectual, intelligent, and creative, calling them inventive and thoughtful. Sapphire is a slower ink color focused on building and ramping ink as quickly as possible in order to gain an advantage. Because of this, Sapphire tends to play a bit slower, instead building toward overwhelming your opponent with cards they simply don't have enough ink to answer. This ink is also known for its many items and synergies related to them, with cards that replaces themselves so you don't run out of things to play. Common keywords for Sapphire cards are support, ward, and resist, along with some types of healing and debuffs. Out of the 6 ink types, Sapphire tends to require more planning from players to get the most out of it, so if you want to form complex strategies and watch them unfold, this might be the ink for you. Sapphire's core shape is the sacred geometry. The majority of its cards' design are represented by repeating geometric shapes, circles, radios, and straight lines. A Sapphire card that greatly represents this visual theory is Merlin Intellectual Visionary. There is a clear sense of geometry in the magic he's conjuring, and this pattern is repeated within itself, but also his robe. And speaking of his robe, we see plenty of straight lines accented in gold, making them stand out even more. The last ink type of this list is Steel. The best word to describe Steel is strong. Steel is known for glimmers that are large and imposing, heavily armored, or just plain powerful. Steel is another control focus color. Compared to Ruby, Steel effects tends to inflict damage and often target multiple characters at once, sometimes at the cost of sacrificing some of the damage. Steel also has more tools to deal with removing items and locations, as well as ways to draw cards and filter through your deck for the ones you need. Steel plays cards that are very powerful and that are hard to get rid of, with unique triggering conditions that can damage your opponents on play or when banishing them. Very common keywords for Steel are Resist, Challenger, and Bodyguard. If you want a more straightforward and effective approach to your game, Steel is a great choice. Analyzing its visual theory, Steel's core shape is the square. You'll see this represented across many card designs with blocky, thick, and impenetrable shapes with curves often avoided. A Steel card that greatly represents this visual theory is John Silver Stern Captain. He is shown with a formidable pose clad in blocky armor. His whole body shape is reminiscent of the core shape of Steel, with big, square pieces. And these are the 6 ink types in Disney Lorcana and what they represent in the game. Do you have a favorite color? And which ink combination you usually run in your decks? Let us know down in the comment section below. And if you like this content and would like to stay up to date with future ones, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy questing!